Hello everyone, this is Cynthia Thinnis and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about what is a forgotten polarity in astrology and in metaphysics. And that forgotten polarity is that between wet and dry. Most of us know the other polarity, even if you're not familiar with astrology. That is the polarity between day and night, hot and cold. Yin yang is another ways to phrase that polarity. It's the polarity between activity and rest, active, passive, light and dark. Not light and dark in the sense of good and evil, but light in the sense of daylight, dark in the sense of nighttime, quiet, absence of energy. And some equate that polarity with masculinity and femininity, and there's a long tradition of that. I actually disagree with that classification, but that is another video for another day. Today, I want to focus on the other polarity, which is wet and dry. And this polarity is as fundamental, if not more so, as the one between day and night. That polarity is a little more abstract, but it's just as intuitive as the other one is. What this polarity is, it's between togetherness and separation, sameness and division. Things that are wet are soft, they're fuzzy, it's hard to distinguish one thing from another. Things that are dry are hard, they're very clear, they're distinct. And we all really know about this. In fact, the language that you use when describing something that's wet, unclear, a little fuzzy, things that are dry is sometimes synonymous with boring, but it is boring in the sense that you're listening to a list of figures that are just distinct. This polarity runs through all of our political divisions. One of them is whether to be more open, more liberal, more inclusive of many different people, and the other one's being more enforcing of separations, enforcing the rules, enforcing the divisions between people. Most academic arguments can be divided along the polarity of wet and dry. For example, many years ago when I was in teacher education, there was the issue between phonics, learning to read through phonics, or through whole language. Now I've been spending time learning languages, and there's, well, do you just do total immersion and you just sort of pick things up intuitively, or do you need to sit down and learn the rules? That's a wet and dry division in a theory and how to approach things. And fundamentally, it's about what brings things together, which is wet, and what separates things, what makes things distinct from each other, which is dry. And both of them are really necessary. This division can be found in many places, but one of the places it can be found is in the book of Genesis in the Judeo-Christian written tradition. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. And you can see actually both polarities in there. But the first polarity was moving from a formless void to a separation between light and dark. And that separation from the formless void where there's nothing to when there's something is the division between wet and dry. Now, it also says the limits of everything too. If everything was all wet, we wouldn't have anything. There would be no distinctions. The universe, the cosmos would be a formless void. But if you take the dry end of the spectrum to its conclusion, and if everything was dry, there would be nothing again. Everything would break apart into its separate atoms, and eventually there would be nothing. So existence, for us to exist, for manifestation to exist, there needs to be both. There needs to be separation, but there also needs to be cohesion. And this can be seen, both polarities can be seen in the elements and the order that they're generally placed in when you're talking about the zodiac. These elements are fire, earth, air, and water. Now they alternate between hot and cold. Fire is hot, earth is cold. Air is hot, water is cold. What happens with the elements, with wet and dry, is that it starts off dry. There starts to be separation. Fire and earth are both dry. And then, before it goes too far, it goes as far as it can go through earth, and then it moves back to wet. Separation, bringing back together. The wet elements are air and water. And this continues, this pattern of separation coming back together, separation coming back together. So that dry doesn't go too far. It only goes far enough. It goes far enough to create forms. It goes far enough so that we have something that we can say exists. But then as it gets too far, it gets pulled back together. And then when it gets pulled back together, it doesn't get too wet either. Once things get too wet, when you get back to water, water is ever anything. Water can be anything. Water is the all possibility. And from that all possibility then comes fire. So why is this important? Well, as an astrologer, this is important because it gives us another way to understand charts and understand human nature. We can look at a chart and we can see, oh, is this a very dry chart? Is it filled with earth and fire signs? This person is going to make decisions easily, but they might make decisions too easily. It might be hard for them to see both sides of a situation. And everything to them would be, as the language, cut and dry. They're not going to be interested in nuances. If somebody is mostly water and air, they're going to be open-minded, open-ended. They're going to generally understand nuances and how things fit together, but it might be very difficult for them to make decisions. That being able to see all sides of an issue can be very difficult when it comes to deciding between things. And on a broader, more philosophical level, understanding the difference between wet and dry can help understand human conflict and what we're fighting over. And indeed, with this understanding, it could actually cut through a lot of human conflict because you would have language to discuss this. Oh, well, you know what? I think this is a little too wet. I think we need to dry it out a little bit. You know, I understand you want to be inclusive of everybody, but we do have to make judgments here and there. Or you could also say, well, you know what? Maybe this position is a little too dry. It's making distinctions that may not be relevant or may just be causing more harm than good. And ultimately, when it comes to conflict of ideology, the answer is usually somewhere in the middle. You need both. You need distinctions, you need separations, but you also need to see what we all have in common and what we can agree on, while at the same time respecting that there are real differences between people. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to discuss anything I said here, please feel free to use the comment section. If you like this video, please press like. And if you would like notifications of future videos, please subscribe and ring the bell. Goodbye for now. See you next week.